pulled it off perfectly fine. Today what we're going to talk about is how to plan a haunted house, haunted hotel vacation. And the paranormal stuff that you actually came up with. And we'll show you photos and everything. I'll put it in as we go along. You do this a lot. You go to haunted hotels and everything?
Well, we go on big vacations.
Okay.
We always look for something unique, like unique places, the highest, the longest highest paved road. I wanted to go to the creepiest hotel in the world. Okay. And the Stanley is listed as the creepiest hotel in the world.
Well, that one was based into The Stand by Stephen King.
No.
No, it wasn't The Stand?
The Shining.
The Shining. That's what
happened is he stayed in room 217. The hotel used to close for the winter.
Yeah.
The last time it closed for the winter was the last day he was there. He was the only one in the entire hotel. Chairs were put up all over the place. He was in 217. It was empty, but him.
But in the movie, it was 230.
Well, now wait. There's the movie. He was in the 217 when he got the inspiration to write it because of something that happened to him there.
Okay.
But the movie didn't use the Stanley Hotel. The movie used, I think, was called The Overlook. They made a mini-series a couple of decades later of The Shining. And in the mini-series, they did use the Stanley Hotel.
Oh, okay.
And another thing on room 217, Dumb and Dumber, part of that was filmed there. Jim Carrey had checked into room 217. He stayed there. He was there less than 3 hours. He ran out. He said, I'm not going back into that hotel unless we're actively filming.
Wow.
He never said why. To this day, he has never said why he did that.
If it was me, I'd burn the place down. I don't deal well with paranormal stuff.
Well, there's a lot of active rooms. You get some hotels that there's one or two ghost stories. There's this person wandering or that person wandering, and then you've got the Stanley that has several spirited rooms. My thought is, why the hell does a spirit stay in a certain room and can't he wander? Then you've got the Jerome in Arizona. Mm-hmm. The Jerome was an actual hospital. They turned it into a hotel.
Was it a hospital or was it a insane asylum hospital?
It was a hospital.
Okay.
And over 9,000 people had died in that, in the Jerome. Now, we drove by the Jerome. I just did an outside picture. Didn't have time to go in because we were heading for a haunted cave. so in fact, I'll get into that in a minute. But the Jerome is one of those, that entire mining town is just packed. And they say you can't stay in the Jerome without seeing something. There's a video I watched of the guys going, okay, now you can see an orb went into my wife's head. Okay. I don't know about that.
So what you're saying is, if I go to these hotels, make sure I get a lot of rock salt and iron, right? From Supernatural.
No, you want to see them. You want to draw them. You want to draw them out. Now.
Yeah, no.
One thing someone said is I really needed, and I was going to get one actually before the vacation, but time, money, a tri-field EMF meter that detects the electromagnetic force that they give off. Oh. So I was going to actually get that, and then I really needed something that showed infrared. A lot of time, you talk about orbs. Have you ever heard someone talk about
orbs? Yeah.
What orbs are? They're like a spiritual soul floating around, but a lot of people, there's a lot of fake in the ghost hunting stuff. And they'll go, oh my God, look at these orbs. And, well, most of them are dust.
Yeah.
Dust floating in front of the lens.
Or the light in front of the lens.
Right.
That would be more.
Unless you see one move through really fast.
Oh,
especially move through and then change directions really fast.
Well, it's like UFO documentations and everything like that. A lot of that stuff. Some of it is actually just dust and light and everything like that. But there's some of them that are actually, they do like circles or they zip back and forth and everything like that. Very rarely do you have those. Nowadays, everybody's like, oh, no, there's aliens. We all know.
But how many people go, yeah, there's ghosts?
No, I've actually had a lot of people tell me about ghost stories and everything like that. There's a missile base in Wisconsin that is a hot spot for ghosts. The whole base is haunted.
Cool. Can you tour it?
No, I don't think so. It's a missile base. Very high security.
So it's not like a decommissioned base?
No, it's not a decommissioned base.
Okay.
Now, the one story that someone told me about this one missile base was a lot of the security forces. What happens is that if one of them falls asleep in a certain area, they get a slap on the face, because what had happened was it was an old army fort, and what had happened is the army fort was taken over and raided by the Indians, and everybody was killed. Well, it was one enlisted personnel that was on the fort doing the tower work and everything, and he ended up dying, but he fell asleep on his post. That's the reason why if your security forces or if you fall asleep in certain spots, you get woken up by a ghost.
Yeah. Well, that's handy.
It is really handy, really, if you actually think about it. Yeah. But where are the hotels that you actually stayed at? And how do you prepare for that kind of stuff?
Well, I was preparing for the vacation. Like I said, I looked for unique. So I looked for unique hotel. And then I started looking at other hotels and things in Colorado. Now, we weren't going to stay in the Drome because we stayed in Sedona. So I started looking, and my wife came up with, well, why don't we try to stay at the Strater? Now, she wasn't looking for haunted. The Strater's in Durango. She was looking for historic. And that kind of tipped me off. Now on any of our vacations, we look for historic, which most historic is much older, and a lot of them have something going on.
Yeah.
So I looked at, there were 4 hotels I kind of concentrated on, and then my wife nixed me and said, only 2 haunted hotels on one trip. So the Strater in Durango has, Durango, the train, railroad tracks, it's in that area. It's had some variety of activity. Then there's the Colorado, and there's some history behind it that actually Teddy Roosevelt and the teddy bear may have come from the Colorado Hotel, actually someone in there.
Okay.
But it has an interesting spook, and that spook likes guys.
Okay. Oh, you're telling me about
yeah, and they say about 3 in the morning, the guy will be laying down, he'll look up, and there's a woman floating over him. I really wanted to stay there. I really wanted that, and I asked people, and I didn't ask like a preacher or something, get into religious, but I said, is it cheating on your wife if you do it with a spook? And I really want that.
I don't think that's cheating, because actually, if you think about it, is it considered rape?
Oh, it would be consensual with me. I would have been like, come on. Like Ghostbusters,
That would be pretty bad if the ghost just walks off.
No!
Walks off, and I was like, I can't even get a ghost to have sex with me. What the hell?
Yeah.
That would be my luck.
Right. But some of the issues with hotels like that in Colorado are it's 5 stories tall and doesn't have an elevator.
Oh. That's a lot of water.
Then there's the Delaware. The Delaware, just one of the instances in there that I know of, a guy caught his wife cheating and shot her, and she died there, and she shows up. And some other people, some of these hotels, the owners, the original owners, they show up, and their spouses. Even in the Stanley, Stanley's wife shows up, they say, and starts playing a piano, some notes on a piano. but wanted to stay at the Delaware. Delaware, big, has no air conditioning. Stanley has no air conditioning either. And that's why I upgraded to the room we stayed at, because I was looking for something. I was like, oh my God, no air conditioning. We like to crank it down to like 68. So I thought, well, let me get a corner room that has windows that open on both sides for a cross breeze. So I upgraded, and the room was $435 a night.
Oh, wow.
So week of overtime to stay in a hotel one night.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a vacation that was 21 nights.
Damn.
So, no, couldn't do $435 21 times. But the vacation starts in Texas, and what I did was I started watching these videos in Stan Jan Paranormal. Okay. You gotta put that together. Stan and Jan, that's the name of the husband and wife. And he does ghost hunts between just the two of them most of the time. And it's kind of, more dry. It's not your sensational, like going through something with we're finding this, oh, look at this. He's like, okay, we went in here and set this up, this happened, did so many detectives.
There's no spontaneity to it.
Yeah, he's research. So I started watching his videos, and one of the places that we had set up to go, because I like unique on a vacation, was lunch in a cave. They had just opened in Grand Canyon Caverns, the Grotto restaurant. So you could actually have lunch down in the cave, and it included the cave tour. So I noticed Stan Jan had a video on the Grand Canyon Caverns. So evidently, he did one. He was in there, and a guitar started playing a few notes. And that was after one of the people, he actually had a couple of friends with him on that one. And she had picked up this guitar and then put it back down, turned around, and you see her go like that. It played a couple of notes. So it's kind of known as a haunted also. You could stay down in it. It's over $1,000, and you can stay a night in the cave. You can tour the cave by yourself. They show you how to turn the lights on in the entire cave. You turn it out, you're dark. That would be cool to me. I don't know if some people freak out on that. But that's when I started really getting into his videos, is the Stanley and then the cave. So we drove by Jerome, and we drove by it because I like to drive down squiggly roads. Yeah. And I called because it was kind of late in the morning, and I called the cave, and I said, hey, can we move our lunch to the third seating? They had 3 seatings for lunch. Then we did that, so I had enough time to swing by the Jerome and get a picture of that. But like I said, I want to do some ghosty stuff. I don't know about that hotel. That one's just too active.
And that's the one
in Arizona.
That was a hospital.
Yeah, 9,000 people died in it, and that's just in the hospital when it was a hospital. That's not the stories after it was turned into a hotel. There's a lot more stories on that. People killing each other, spouses. That type of activity.
Why don't they bring these places to the freaking ground? I'm sorry, I can't deal with that kind of crap.
Oh, it's so historic and beautiful. They don't build things like that anymore.
No, they don't. But there's probably reasons. Like the Winchester House. Basically what it was the wife of the Winchester company when it first came out. The husband died, and she made this house that the entire time that she was living there, it was constantly being fixed up. There's doors they'll go outside on like the 3rd floor.
Oh, okay. I remember that one.
Yeah, they just recently made a movie about that, the Winchester House, and everybody thought she was crazy and everything. Well, she probably was crazy at the end of it, but she lived a long time. I think the whole reason why she kept on having people work on it is it was some kind of prophecy that if whatever house she lives in, once it's finished, she'll die there. That's the reason why she had somebody kept on working on it.
Cool. Well, we went through our vacation, and I did a lot of research on the Stanley, and it became as much of a haunted thing as a historic thing. The history behind the Stanley is fascinating. F.O. Stanley, he's the same thing you hear about Stanley Steamer, the carpet cleaner.
Is that I was wondering this yesterday. Is it the same thing as Stanley Tools too?
I don't know about Stanley Tools. I don't think so. But one of the big things he invented was the Stanley Steamer automobile. And my cousin yesterday, who owns a garage here, was telling me about one thing about him that I didn't know, is that he said when you went to buy a Stanley Steamer, he interviewed you. Stanley interviewed you to make sure you were intelligent enough to own it and operate it. Because the steam automobile, there's a lot of levers and buttons, and it builds steam pressure, and the thing could explode.
Oh, okay.
But he had, was it bronchitis, tuberculosis?
It's probably tuberculosis.
One of those things when he was in his low 50s, and he lived in New York. And a doctor said, why don't you go out there to Colorado, breathe some fresh air. He said, you got about a year or two to live. He lived about 30 more years. He decided to build the hotel out there. So he built the hotel, and it was outside of town, so he used his Stanley Steamer automobile to shuttle people up to the hotel. And if you check, when you get in the hotel, in the lobby, there's a lot of original, it's like a museum in the lobby. And it's just absolutely gorgeous.
For the steamer car?
Yeah, well, for everything Stanley. But they've got one of the Stanley Steamer cars there. I got some pictures of that. But I was doing the research of all the rooms, and the room we got was on the 3rd floor. The 4th floor is the most active. 2nd floor has the Stephen King room on it. You can book those rooms for a spirited upgrade. Their most active rooms are an additional $100. But in our case, instead of us going to the spirit came to us.
And that's what you got photos of?
Yeah. What happened, we're going into Colorado. We stay in Grand Junction. Now, I know one of the most spirited rooms is room 401. So we check into Grand Junction, we're late, like normal, we're running in late, and the lady says, well, there's you and one other person here, and she asked how it's going, and of course I talk, so I tell her about the whole vacation, and she was like, oh, great, I really like you guys, I had to upgrade someone to a suite, I'm glad it was you guys who I had chose. Here, it's room 401, it's a nice corner room facing the mountains. So we check in. I was like, oh, this is cool. A massive room, cheapest one of the whole vacation, $85.
Really?
And she upgrades us to a massive suite.
Wow.
So then we go over to head over to Durango. We drive down scenic drives. This whole thing is based on scenic byways, highways, canyons. National parks, state parks. We had what people would say is a highlight to their vacation every day. I mean, like one day, a 4-hour trail ride turned into 2 hours that opened up into an area where John Wayne filmed True Grit, to a private Jeep tour that took us up to over 10,000 feet and down into a valley, into a hidden waterfall that he's the only one who gets to out of all the dozens of Jeep companies around there. So we go through all that. We check in at the Strater, which was generally just for historic. I didn't think about it as ghosty. Turns out a couple nights ago when I was researching this, we were on the most active floor. But they're a little different. The Stanley, you check in, and there's a sheet here on their active rooms, and they have ghost tours.
Oh, really? How much does it cost?
I think the ghost tour was like $35 or something. Now, they have a ghost tour in a historic tour. I'll get back into the ghost tour there. But the Strater, we check in, and I'm like, yeah, I hear you're haunted. He said, we don't talk about that here.
Oh,
So
really?
they're totally different. They're totally different on that. There's
I mean,
literature around, no tours. They're like, we don't, for our people, we don't want to talk about that. So we're checking in, and he tosses down a key, room 401. It's a nice corner room facing the mountains. 401.
Yeah.
The same as in Grand Junction.
Yeah.
The same as the. And
my wife. Weird.
Yeah. See,
I thought you were talking about the Soho Hotel there.
No, this is in Durango. The
Oh,
straighter, the big one, not the cheap hotel we stayed at in Grand Junction, where they upgraded us. This is when we check in Durango, and he throws down 401, and I was like, and he looked at me funny when I laughed, and my wife looked at me and said, if we get to the Stanley and they throw down 401, you're staying there by yourself. I'm finding another hotel.
Yeah, I'd freak out after the first one.
So here, 401, yeah, okay. 401, yeah, so we stay at the Durango, and there's something kind of happened there. We didn't see it, but when we checked in, we were told, okay, it's an old hotel, and you've got to crank the air up. The air conditioning doesn't work well. Crank it up, maybe in a few hours it'll cool down. Well, a couple hours later, we're still sweating. It's hot. That thing isn't cooling down at all. We go to bed. We wake up. Well, it's kind of cool in there. I go over to open the blinds, and the window's open. Window's open about that. Just enough to get a nice breeze in. Says, oh, window's open. Cool. So we go downstairs, and I asked the guy at the front desk, I said, hey, when you're cleaning people clean, do they ever open the windows or anything, let some draft in? No, they never touch the windows. They're always closed. My wife looks over at me and went, I thought you opened it. And I said, I thought you might have opened it. In their rooms, they have a diary in every room that you can write down your experiences in there. And I wrote a little description of how we love the Strader, beautiful hotel. And at the end of it, I said the story about the window opening. And I said, well, so if you run into something in here, don't worry, it's friendly and helpful. I wonder what the next people who checked into that room thought when they opened that diary and read that.
You didn't read the rest of the diary, see if that happens a lot?
Well, I read some, and the one before us, the kids heard some knocking on doors and stuff. I glanced through. We had a lot to do. It was a big full vacation. Okay. We were going to do the Durango train, and that got canceled because of the fires. It was one of the big forest fires. Remember the big forest fires a couple of years ago?
What are you talking about? There's constantly heavy forest fires.
Okay, this one was caused by the train, and it was burning part of Colorado that was all the way
Oh, in Colorado, okay.
Yeah, that was all the way up from Durango to Silverton where the train goes. Okay. But in my advanced planning that I do, I had a contingency. I actually booked a second excursion train, both of them several $100s, but I figured, okay, if Durango cancels, I've got this as a backup. If Durango still goes off, it's $17 cancellation fee over here at the Cumbres and Toltec. So we were going to do an all-day excursion train, no matter what.
Okay.
But then we headed north up there and headed over a few other locations and then toward the Stanley. Now, the Stanley, I had been researching, and they have the ghost tour and they have a historic tour. And I kind of like to go back and do the historic tour also. So we check in, and when we go into hotels, I generally take pictures of the room. Okay, so I take pictures. That way, if I want to put it on, do a review on Booking.com or TripAdvisor and put the pictures of the hotel room, I'll do that. Normally, I have everything still packed, and I move suitcases around so they're not in the picture. Mm-hmm. And we go out of the room. So we went into the Stanley, and I didn't think about it right away. Took some pictures. I also set up a 360 camera and snapped some pictures.
So go about where we left off because we had to take a potty break.
Well, I was. I'll get back to what I said I was going to get back to the story of what people had seen in the hotel.
Okay.
Stan Jan Paranormal did one of their setups with it, where they set up all the equipment, all the meters, infrared cameras all around the room, and everything's recorded. They'll leave, things happen, then they'll visibly observe things, maybe lights coming on or something like that. And he had an instance in there where he goes through and checks all of his EMF sensors. And the next day, one of them was off. And he kind of said, well, I double checked, I triple checked, but maybe it was off or something. They had to change rooms because there wasn't, the hotel was booked. Mm-hmm. So one night they stayed in one room, the other night they set up in another room. So they set up, and they have all these sensors around. And they go out to a restaurant, they come back, and in the video, one of the sensors did what he called a post, where it resets and it turns on. When you first turn it on, it tests itself.
Yeah.
And he said that kind of activity could only happen if it was turned off and back on completely. There's no glitch that causes.
And this is at which hotel again?
This is at the Stanley.
Okay.
This was his video of the Stanley that we watched before going there.
Okay.
So he sees that, and then he picks up the audio, and you can hear garbled in the background. Something, he cleans up the audio a little bit, and he catches something going, they showed me how to do that.
Oh, wow.
So that was one of his...
So the ghosts are learning how to...
Yeah, that was one of his early times, I think, of actually going, hey, this shows intelligent ability with these things.
Wow, that's not helping me out at all with this stuff.
So, yeah, the intelligent ability. And when I emailed back and forth to him, the message back and forth, he told me a couple to watch. There was one other video he's done recently that he said, so intense what went on that he said he sent it off and there are physicists analyzing the video. I haven't watched that one yet, but that sounds really interesting. But he has that, so we go into our room and we've set up to do, we've taken pictures. I forgot to take a 360 photo, so we go in and set it up anyway. So the suitcase is out on the bed, the table's already set up with stuff on it. And it's a 360 camera that's got two 190-degree lenses.
Okay.
So it isn't like, you take your cell phone and you go along and it stitches it together. Or some have several lenses on it. This has two lenses and does one stitch on the sides. So there's nothing in the middle and the front that should be any kind of anomaly.
Okay.
So we set it on a table, and we always get out of the room, so we go into the bathroom to snap the picture. It snaps a picture like that, so it's not some long process that it needs to absorb a lot of light. So we snap the picture, and I have a really freaky feeling in the restroom when we're in the bathroom. And we go out back into the room, and I knew I had to go back in the restroom. The freaky feeling was so freaky, I almost actually asked my wife to come in the bathroom with me. That's how creepy the feeling was.
Wow.
So, didn't think a lot about it, kind of looked around. I did a goofy thing that I won't do again. I set the 360 camera up to take a picture every 2 minutes through the night. My cell phone, the Note, does really good low light pictures. You take pictures in caves and do awesome photos. The 360 camera, not so well. The only lights it caught were the lights of everything being charged on the table below it. So it didn't catch that when the room was dark. So I have that picture, and then I don't look at my pictures. I take...
And we'll show that photo.
Yeah, I take over 10,000 pictures on a vacation. I had hundreds of gigs of dash cam video, who knows how much GoPro video, thousands of pictures with a Nikon cell phone, 360 camera. So there's a lot. Not a whole lot of 360 pictures though. So someone was talking about the Grand Canyon, and they wanted to see my picture of the Grand Canyon that I took with my 360 camera. And I actually took it, grabbed it, leaned over the edge of the Grand Canyon and snapped the picture. Mm. No one's around. I'm off the trail. So I found that picture, and then I'm going, this is like a few days ago. I'm looking at my other pictures. Oh, this was nice. This was a nice experience. And I go, what the hell? And I zoom into it.
And this is the photo of the ghost. And everything.
Yeah, there's something there. And I sent it off to a friend who, he's a former news cameraman up for Philadelphia, who also now does video editing and Photoshop. And I said, analyze this thing and see if there's a glare. My laptop set here, a glare from the pillow, the bed sheets, something kind of glare that would cause that anomaly in it. And, he's questioning the camera. I gave him a link to the camera. I said, this is the camera. It doesn't stitch in the front. And it would have been front facing. That door would have been about that angle from it. So far from any stitch point. If you look at the picture, though, you will see off to the right side an anomaly. Don't worry about it. That's at a stitch point. Somehow it took a USB cable and made it look as big as a rope.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, look at it. It's a braided USB cable. If you look down, you can see the different things charging, and you can actually see a cable just like that plugged into something else. Okay. So that's what caused that.
Yeah.
But he looks at it and he goes, no, there's no lighting artifact that would cause that. And then he thinks of it as multiple entities in the room, and he kind of draws it out with multiple entities. So I put that out, a long story on Facebook. And someone comes up with, I don't think it's multiple. I think something came in and turned around and left. Heard us, didn't want to mess with us, turned around and left. So I go beyond that, and I contact Stan Jan Paranormal. And I put under his Stanley video, you can see my comments. I left him a comment, hey, I was at the Stanley, this happened, what do you think? And he said, I looked at your Facebook page, I see that. You seem like an honest person looking at the story that wouldn't just Photoshop something and put it out there. He had a couple of interesting comments about it. He said, a lot of people who fake ghost pictures, they'll put something and it's transparent. He said, when he sees that, he knows it's fake. Real ghost images aren't transparent, they're translucent. Okay. So yours passes that test, he said. Normally, it isn't full body. Most of the time, a full bodied is a fake. Okay. Yours isn't. Passes that test. He said, you really needed infrared in there. And he said that you probably wouldn't have even seen it. You may have felt it, but you wouldn't have seen it yourself, because a camera picks up different spectrums of light that go beyond what you can see. Yeah. So your camera picked it up, you probably wouldn't have seen it. So in another exchange, I say, here's a friend, because he says the drawings of the multiple images, that's not right. It's just the one. And I said, well, a friend said that it came in and turned around. And he said, no, they usually don't do that. Unless there's something really impeding their way, they don't do that. He said he probably went through the bathroom with you guys, seeing what you guys were up to, and then through the wall right there and out the door. Oh, God. Well, there's this big brass sink right next to the toilet, and then a lot of brass in the shower. And that's where he had his meter propped up in his video that I watched that went off. So that was another reason when I go in there to use the restroom, and I thought about calling my wife in there, I'm just staring at that sink. And I'm staring at the tub, the area of the wall that would have been the area if he went through. That's where he would have gone through in the bathroom.
Oh man, what the hell?
I was staring at that. So he's sure it's real, and I had the Stanley. I had contacted the Stanley, and I said, "Hey, look at my Facebook post." And they a couple days later they called me back, and they were all excited. You don't really see a lot of you hear a lot of this, that you see evidence of ghosts. You know, this glass shattered, something moved. But I've only seen online one actual supposed picture of a spirit. And I kind of question that because it is full color and a lady in full apparition.
Yeah, and usually they don't have like color.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of the ones I've seen. It's very bland with color.
If you look at, I mean, it's a dark dress, but if you look it up online, you'll see a guy who was taking pictures at night, and he caught this thing on a staircase when he said there was no one there, and it looks like a lady. That's about the only picture I've seen of supposedly a picture of a spirit in the Stanley. That might be why they're really excited, because it's definite. It's proof.
Yeah.
But he did the same thing I did. I wandered through at night, late at night, when no one was up in the hotel, and I wandered through snapping pictures in the lobby and down the hallways with my regular camera for a while. Yeah, that was creepy, especially you'll see in one of my pictures at the top of a staircase up in a corner wall is a picture of Old Man Stanley, and it almost looks like a 3D coming out at you. So
Really?
But it's just a picture, but that's just how it's made and how it looks. And I always glanced up at that. I mean, I'm sure it's no big deal. But now, that was kind of an unbelievable, unexpected thing, is to spot that.
Yeah. Well, Kai wanted to go a lot of places, like around here that's supposed to be haunted and everything, creepy, and take video evidence and everything as part of some of our stuff that we wanted to do. I'm all for it, but I'm carrying freaking iron.
Just make sure
something with iron and some salt. No, screw you.
They don't.
I'm coming prepared.
Ghosts are friendly. It's the demons you have to look out for.
Yeah, they don't hurt you.
Well, the demons I accidentally date, so.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying they're dangerous.
Now, I was all gung-ho about going and seeing haunted places. I wanted to see those other 2 haunted places. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to see haunted places. But then I picked up my phone, and I looked at that picture a few days ago, and I went, I don't know. He didn't bother me, but I don't know. Now I know why I was so creeped out that night.
Well, when I worked corrections, there was a guy that's in a group that does all that stuff too. They the Texas Paranormal, I think it's called. And they do that all the time. They go around creepy places around the states, and I'm like, why would you knowingly do that crap?
You need to have infrared camera with you, though, to really pick it.
I don't know. I
it
think
up.
the GoPro has infrared. The new one, the 8, it might have.
I
know it has night vision. I'm not sure if that's the same.
I have a camcorder. It's an older camcorder, but it has night vision, and for the night vision, it actually has an infrared beam it puts out to light things up. Just like your military, how you light things up. It actually puts that out. You can see it if you look in the mirror. If you're looking at the front of the camera, you can't see it. But if you point it into a mirror, you can see the beam. But it lights things up, and that's what I needed with me.
Yeah, if you have that, we'll borrow it. Can we borrow that?
Yeah, the thing is, you got to record it on a high 8 tape, and it's older and won't connect to. Yeah, you can't transfer. Windows 10 is beyond its capabilities, so it would be nice. I was thinking about that, but last night I was actually trying to connect it and researching how to connect it because I was going to try to use it as a webcam for a Zoom call.
I don't know. I think Candy has something that you can do. Use it.
Oh,
because she transfers a lot of her videos from her family videos. She put it on a hard drive and put it on a disc. She might have a bit. I just have to ask her.
Yeah,
But-
she wanted to borrow mine so she could take an 8mm tape and transfer it onto VHS. So she hasn't done that yet. One other thing, a little history about me before this is in college, someone wanted to do an astrological reading on me.
Mm-hmm.
Full blown, not your astrological chart that, okay, what's your birthday, whatever. There was something called a natal chart. She needed me to actually find out down to the second, preferably, but it has to be the minute you were born. The exact location, details. And she produced 3x5 cards, just boxes of them, of my life. Unfortunately, my sister wanted to read them, and then my brother-in-law died, and they got lost.
Yeah.
But I had read up to the present time, and I'm like, you caught my life exact 100%. So I'm up in the break room at work, and a word comes into my head, conduit. And I hadn't thought of that in a long time. And then I remembered, that lady said I was a conduit. So I told Caitlin, I said, hey, Caitlin, you got a friend who's into this kind of stuff. And this lady said, I remember being told you're a conduit. And she goes, let me pass it on to this other friend I have who's really into astrology. And she got back to me and she said, cancel that night at the Stanley. If you're a conduit, cancel that night.
Basically, you attract spirits.
I attract spirits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and conduit channels. And what's funny is, I was actually going to do this, but I got freaked out too much that night. I was going to actually sit there at the desk with a pen in my hand and a piece of paper and just sit there for a while.
Oh.
That's channeling, is you start writing the spirit. And that's what being a conduit is. Now, I say that room 401 that we stayed at, 401 in the Stanley is one of the most active rooms. Mm-hmm. There's a guy in there. I look at my picture, and then I start looking things up that are in the different rooms, and I go, it looks like Lord Dunraven. You see a jacket, the way you see the jacket and the collar, it looks like one of those overcoats, and you look at a picture of Lord Dunraven, and that's what he's wearing.
Okay.
So, which room is Lord Dunraven in? 401. So we didn't go where he was, he came to us. So was all this 401, didn't stay at 401 and I'm bummed, but the spirit that was in 401 came to us. That really creeped me. And I found that out last night when I was looking through my old posts on Facebook, because I use Facebook like a vacation diary. Mm. And I told that story 2 years ago about 401 here and 401 here. But I didn't know who was in 401. I didn't even remember the exact room number that this story wrapped around until I looked at who was in the room. And room 401, a male ghost who some believe to be an Irish man named Lord Dunraven is reported in this room. He never stayed in the hotel, but he owned the land that F.O. Stanley bought to put the hotel on. But if you look at the picture... And
so he died on that land, or...?
No, he didn't even die on the land.
So he's just connected to it?
He's just connected to it. And they've connected that he is the one who's in room 401. There could be other connections besides someone actually physically dying in a location. But yeah, that was extra creep out. When we had a few days ago on Facebook, you can look under my Facebook post, and I put a picture as I'm discussing with this lady, the spirit, and who this could be. And she's the one who said, well, she thinks it's something that turned around, and that, like you said, was discounted by Stan. Because he said it went straight, and you look at it, and you look at the Facebook post, the jacket, it kind of looks like could be his figure. And then I didn't figure out till last night, he's actually the one in 401. I wasn't even thinking about that when I looked and decided that that might be who we saw.
Wow. I'm just, no.
Too many coincidences. And when Caitlin told me that I'm a conduit, I was like going to freak out my wife, because we were going through Sedona before we got there, and Sedona has these things called vortexes. And at the vortexes, it's supposed to fine-tune your spiritual energy. It's supposed to increase it. And as a joke, I was going to bring a blanket. And me and my wife go out there, and she wouldn't know what I've done. And I was going to put it down and start chanting. Just to try to get my wife freaked out. I told Caitlin I was going to do that. That would have been a crack up.
Well, you're never going to go to Michael's house ever. I already established that. There's a ghost story on that one, because I asked Michael one day. I was like, "Hey, Michael, is there a problem with the downstairs bathroom?" He's like, "No, there's not a problem with the downstairs bathroom." Why? I was like, "Because you went to go use the upstairs bathroom last night." It's like, "No, I didn't. I stayed downstairs. I didn't even use the restroom last night." I'm like, "No, really, you used the restroom last night?" He's like, "No, I didn't, David." I was like, "No, seriously, you went to the restroom, and you're gonna freaking tell me that you went to the freaking restroom last night upstairs?" I went to the restroom upstairs, but I didn't. Nope, stop there. You did. And shitbag over here keeps on telling. He's like, "Hey, Dave, there's some kind of stuff right behind you. That's kind of weird. Looks like a clawing thingy."
I said, there's some dark shape behind us in that one video that we made. He's like, give me a timestamp. I'm like, damn it.
Well, I took the ghost tour in the Stanley. Now, I had previously watched the Stan Jan Paranormal, because he said I like to do the ghost tours because I like to kind of chuckle at the fake stuff they do. And he spots it. So I was looking for some of the fake stuff. I think they're rushing so many people through, though, that part of the ghost tour that I saw him do several years ago in his video, we didn't do. The real bummer is I didn't get a chance to get anywhere near Lucy.
Oh, what's Lucy?
Well, they had a concert they were setting up for in the concert hall in the Stanley. Around the concert hall, back when they used to close up for the winter, there was this little girl who got closed up in there and froze to death. And they say they see Lucy. He detected a lot of activity in that area leading to the concert hall. And I was bummed that we weren't, because I asked her specifically, "We're not going to see the concert hall?" Because I really wanted to.
They locked up a little girl in there?
Evidently, that's how the story supposedly goes. Is that's who's there.
That is totally messed up.
That she froze to death. Now I hear different stories. That's one of them I hear. But it is Lucy. It is the concert hall, and it is a little girl who died there supposedly. But there's other instances.
I mean, you can't make a story like that up. And like, what was this ghost? Oh, we locked her up one winter, and she froze to death.
Yeah.
What? You actively did that?
They didn't know.
Yeah.
She was hiding. But they do other things, like they drop flashlights down as they're going, and then as you go back through, as they're taking back through, you see the flashlights, they shut themselves down. And he laughs at that. He says, you can look it up online and see what's going on there. It has to do with how a metal flashlight heats up, and it'll go out after a certain period of time to cool down, but they say it's ghost. But then he goes, in the video, he goes, there was one instance with a flashlight. She told it to turn off and told it to turn back on, and it did. So you can watch the Stan Jan video on the Stanley, and he's got that in there.
Okay. Well, I guess we can stop right there. If anything, we'll pick up on some other stuff, and we'll see if we can actually do some crazy, weird stuff with the paranormal. Because I'm more or less, I want to try to venture on some of a lot of stuff. And if you have an idea, comment. I don't care. We'll talk about it, or we'll actually try to do it. But I'm David Dickerman.
Now that was an interesting thing, though. We need some equipment because, like he said, we probably wouldn't have seen that with our naked eye.
Yeah.
What we saw in the room. So without an infrared camera, we'd have seen it looking through an infrared camera lens. So when you go around just looking for ghosts, I know it's kind of a bummer to go, I'm going to go in this hotel and look for ghosts. More than likely, you're not going to look around and see them.
Yeah.
You got to be looking through something that's infrared, or in this case, take a picture with a well-lit room. The room, I turn every light on in the room when I take the pictures of the room because I wanted to pick up everything in case I put it online.
Okay. Well, I'm David Dickerman. This is the actual cutoff. I'm David Dickerman, and this is Bill
Bill Staton.
Staton. And we'll catch you later. Love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.